Hi everyone, welcome to the 3D Virtual Property Expo 2020, organized by Mogul.sg. My name is Keith and I'm happy to be hosting this afternoon's property chat. The Virtual Property Expo provides an immersive experience where all visitors could do a 3D map tour available at the developer booths. Navigate the facilities and neighborhoods of your selected properties through OneMap 3D and go on live chats with the developer sales teams at their booth. There are some surprises in store for you, special discounts at selected properties. Do check out for them. I have three guests joining me today, a legal practitioner and two experienced real estate professionals. First up, we have Simon Huang, Counsel of OC Queen Street. Simon, welcome to the show, and over to you.
Hi, Keith. Thank you for that. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the segment that we're going to do on the legal considerations behind virtual property marketing. I'm just going to share my screen now because I have a short presentation for all of you. Okay, so welcome to the segment on legal considerations for virtual property marketing. This is something that has really increased in prominence following the lockdowns because of COVID globally, and because people are not able to go and see properties for themselves, there has been an increase in demand for virtual property marketing. Like with any other area, there are certain legal considerations that we need to be aware of, and so I'm going to run through some of them today, and following that we'll have a Q&A with Keith. So just a bit about myself. I am counsel at OC Queen Street, which is a Singapore law firm. We are part of the Osborne Clarke network. Osborne Clarke is an international firm that's headquartered in the UK, and we specialize in advising companies in the technology and media space. I've spent my career in mergers and acquisitions, capital markets, and corporate finance. I also advise clients on general employment law and commercial matters. Prior to this, I was actually working as an investment banker for a year, working on M&A deals in Southeast Asia. And currently, I also write for Tech in Asia, which is a leading platform for news about technology and business in the region. So I'm certainly very interested in anything to do with technology and Southeast Asia. So enough about me, let's go on to the topic for today. So I've organized my presentation around three areas of the Council for Estate Agents Professional Service Manual Practice Guidelines. These are guidelines that the CEA, which is the organization that regulates property agents, has actually produced and are meant to guide the behavior of property agents. And what I've done is to take out three parts that I think are relevant to our discussion today. The first would be the rules in 3.22 and 3.31b. The gist of this is that if there is any information that a property agent puts out, the property agent has to ensure that it is not false or misleading, and all materials that advertise or promote a property must accurately describe the property. So that's the first area that we're going to look at. The second area that I want to consider is 3.21, which states that for private residential properties, the buyer or the tenant's agent shall make the facilities of the estate and the surrounding environment of the property, shall make known the facilities of the estate and the surrounding environment to the prospective buyer or tenant. And the third area that we'll look at is 3.6.2. And this states that the estate agent and the salesperson must obtain the client's prior consent before conducting a viewing of the property. So I would argue that a virtual marketing actually implicates all three of these guidelines. And so let's have a closer look. My first suggestion for people who are thinking of doing a viewing, a virtual viewing, on both sides, whether you're an agent or whether you are a potential buyer, I think the first thing that an agent has to do is to ensure the accuracy of a virtual viewing. And this goes back to the regulations, which requires that information is not false and misleading, and that it accurately describes the property. What are the implications of this? So, if there is a material difference between the actual property and what has been shown virtually, this is actually a potential breach of the guidelines, and a buyer could actually potentially claim for misrepresentation. For example, if there are filters used in live viewings or touch-ups done in pre-recorded viewings that lead to the reality of the property being actually very different from what a potential buyer sees, that might actually fall foul of these rules. So what are my suggestions that people should bear in mind? The first is to minimize the use of filters or touch-ups in our videos. Let's leave the filters to the social media apps and to Meituan. Second, buyers should prefer live viewings over pre-recorded viewings, especially if that is the only time that they are going to see the property before buying. For live viewing, you have the advantage of being able to ask questions on the spot and to give the person who's hosting the viewing directions to go into whichever room you want to. This gives you a more honest impression of the property, which at the end of the day is more important than the production value of the video. Third, you should ensure that a video viewing includes all the different parts of a property, the different rooms, so that buyers get a full, accurate description. Fourth, buyers can consider having their agent attend the virtual tour because their agents are more likely to spot if something is wrong. Fifth, buyers can submit questions or concerns following a virtual viewing in writing before they sign anything. This benefits both parties because it ensures that any issues are surfaced before any legally binding transaction is made. And finally, the agent should always offer the buyer the opportunity to download the viewing and keep this on file in case of a dispute. So both sides should actually be able to keep a copy on file. So this is the first point. I'll move on to my second recommendation. And this is to include the surrounding environment in your videos, but be mindful of third parties in the process. Now we go back to 3.2.1, which is about how the agents should actually make known the facilities of the estate and the surrounding environment of the property to a prospective buyer. Now, even though this is only strictly speaking in respect of private residential properties, I would suggest that it also makes sense for HDB properties as well. Most buyers want to know the condition of their surroundings. They want to see what the neighborhood looks like. They want to get a better idea of what the neighbors, the outside of their neighbors' homes looks like. So this is something that can be provided for in a virtual viewing. So one of my suggestions is to have a virtual viewing that can actually show the facilities if you're in a condominium. And you might even show the clip of the journey from the condo entrance or the car park to the unit so that the buyer really can sense it, which they would not be able to otherwise. Now, when you are making a video like this, please be mindful of any third-party personal data that may be inadvertently included. So for example, there could be car license plate numbers that you include in your video. There may be instances, which may be rare, of personal data relating to neighbors that are included in the video. Now, my suggestion for this is either obtain the consent of these third parties to use their data, or probably better is to just edit out and blur this information. This is important because you want to be in compliance with Singapore's Personal Data Protection Act guidelines, which basically regulate the ability of people to not have their personal information disclosed without their consent. So when it comes to third parties and neighbors, this is a point to bear in mind. Finally, I'm going to move on to my third suggestion, which is that the agent as well as the owner, seller, should establish clear parameters at the outset of any virtual viewing. If you look at the CAA guideline, it says that the estate agent and the salesperson must obtain the client's prior consent before conducting a viewing of the property. Now, establishing clear parameters avoids the potential for conflict or misunderstandings by ensuring a clear understanding between the agent as well as the sellers or their tenants regarding the scope of the viewing and the nature of the distribution. So, what are my suggestions? If you have a live video viewing, the procedure can be the same as that for physical viewings. You would usually let the resident / the owner know the times that you are going to be conducting such a viewing so that they can plan accordingly. For example, some residents may prefer to be out of the house when a viewing is conducted, or they may wish to cover certain personal photos in their bedrooms. So let them know before you conduct a live viewing. The second suggestion that I have is for pre-recorded viewings. And my suggestion, see a copy of the viewing and obtain their consent before actually distributing it. As I mentioned, this is in line with data protection laws. If someone has seen a video and they consent to it, then you are in compliance with the data protection laws. Finally, you may also want to establish how your video will be distributed. For example, distributing a video of a house tour to a dozen interested parties is very different from placing it on YouTube for public viewing where everyone can see it. So that's something that you want to be very clear about at the outset with the owners and the residents. So those are my 3 guidelines that I have in light of the CEA rules. Other points to note more generally. If you make a video and you incorporate music, images, logos, or trademarks into your video recording, real-world intellectual property laws will apply, and you should ensure that you have obtained any relevant permissions and licenses that you require. The second point to note is, of course, to ensure that all current COVID-19 regulations, for example, the maximum number of people in a space and the wearing of masks, continue to be complied with. Everyone, I hope that this has been informative. If you are interested in having further conversation, please feel free to reach out. And I'm going to hand it over to Keith now.
Thanks, Simon. I must say that it's very insightful to be hearing from your legal perspectives, especially when currently we know the COVID has changed the entire landscape of several industries, and in particular the real estate industries. So my first question to you, Simon, is based on OC Queen Street, your perspectives, how has this transformation of the real estate industry, being hastened by the COVID situation, changed the legal framework that you are managing, in your firm?
Yeah. If you talk about property itself, I think in terms of the entire framework, obviously there have been laws, in relation to like rebates for tenants and landlords and things like that. But if you look at the issue of virtual viewings, not that much has changed, right? There's been some guidelines that have been put up as to how virtual viewing should be used to, for example, filter down the number of people visiting a property. But we haven't seen any sort of guidelines that really go beyond that. So it's a bit of a gray area. For example, in the UK, they have a property ombudsman that's actually put out certain guidelines for the agents. But in Singapore, we don't really have that yet. So we're trying to make sense, I guess, with the existing laws, as well as a lot of common sense. I think a lot of these things at the end of the day come down to common sense and what keeps people safe. Yeah.
Right. Very true. My second question to you, Simon, is, this whole COVID situation has seen the flourishing of many sales galleries in the virtual space. We are seeing more and more sales galleries from brick and mortar coming on to have a duplicate body on the virtual space.
Yeah.
So how do you see real estate developers, what are some of the legal considerations they should take note of when they handle both the brick and mortar and now the virtual sales gallery?
Yeah. So I think going back, it would be similar to what I have presented in my presentation. When you have a virtual sales gallery, you obviously have to make sure that what you're portraying to your potential buyers is in line with the reality. I think it's also good to ensure that to the extent possible, if they're only going to buy the property on the basis of the virtual viewing, that you keep a record of that, because if there are any disputes later, you want to be able to have a record of that for evidence. So that's an important consideration to bear in mind. Otherwise, a lot of it will be the same as how things have been going.
Right. Thank you so much, Simon, for your valuable time
Thank
and
you.
insights to our audience. That is Simon Huang, Counsel of OC Queen Street. Our next guest is Willie Cheong, Founder and Head of Hutton's Lender Division. With almost 10 years of real estate experience, Willie founded the Hutton's Lender Division, one of the most prolific lender teams in Singapore, which has transacted more than 100 lender properties to date. Willie also has multiple award-winning, a producer and leader, including 8 consecutive top 100 annual producers, and has been featured in Money Mind too. Willie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Keith. Thanks for the introduction.
Yes, over to you, Willie. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, before I begin, I just want to give some disclaimer, right, for the presentation that I'm going to share later. So you can take a look at this. Basically, just take the information as it is, and we would like basically everyone to use this more for reference or and not as a basis for your decisions. Okay. Okay. Before that, let me just start this as well. So thank you, Keith, for the introduction. I think a lot of people are very interested also in how the lender market is doing. Although it's a very niche market, okay, so though it's a very niche market, I think a lot of the contacts, the clients that we get in touch with, they are always wondering, because a lot of the media and local papers, unfortunately, always focus more on the non-landed data. But very thankfully, just 2 days before this, Business Times have actually published this report on the 12th of October, okay, that stated, I think, a very good summary of how the market is like. Okay, so you can take a look and it shows that basically more landed homes have been sold in Q3. Okay, it was actually quite a significant increase versus the last few quarters, if not the last 2 years. Okay, so the next was also about basically some of the reasons that's been shared as well. If you don't have this article or have not seen this before, I will urge you to go and take a look at it. But if today's purpose actually is going to share with you more about the landed data. Okay, landed data here, this is quite just a good summary of how the whole market is doing. So the next maybe 15-20 minutes, I hope to give or share more insight in terms of basically landed properties with landed titles, okay, less on strata ones. The analysis is going to go into the various house types as well as also the various districts, okay, the various districts, which I think a lot of our residents, buyers and sellers will be quite keen in. So let's take a look, all right? First thing, let's take a look at the transaction volume. As the article has reported, you can see here that Q3 2020, post the 3-month circuit breaker, has recorded a very, very healthy growth of 468 units. This one, by comparison with the previous quarter, obviously there was a low in Q2 because of the closure of the market. And as we understand, landed properties or resale properties, unlike some of the new launch properties where you can view the actual show flats, most, if not all, landed property buyers will still prefer to see view the properties in person. Okay, so the closure actually took a hit. We only recorded about 178 in Q2, a lot of which will actually flow over. All right, flow over from March. I think my team and I also recorded a few transactions in March that will flow over, in the sense waiting for the buyers to basically sign on to exercise the option. Other than that, besides that, if not for that, actually the numbers could be even lower. All right. But what we see here is that in Q3, the last 3 months has been really, really busy for everyone, because we see a quite unexpected growth in terms of the growth. So it's almost a 2.6 times increase. All right, 263% versus the previous quarter. And if you were to compare the 1 year before, okay, Q3 2019, it is still a very significant increase of plus 29%. Why do we, for quantity, always also like to look at 1 year before on a quarter-on-quarter basis? It's because in a transactions, resale transactions in Singapore, especially in landed, there is some form of a seasonality. All right, so typically by and large, a quarter 1 and quarter 4 are always significantly lower due to the festive seasons. All right, quarter 2 and 3 normally we'll see the peak in terms of the transaction volume, especially in quarter 3, we see a lot of buyers, I wouldn't say rushing in, but they are trying to purchase their property so that they can transact it, complete the transaction, and also renovate it in time for the next year's Chinese New Year. All right. So if you look at basically quarter 3 this year versus last, you can see quarter 3 last year was also higher than the next few quarters. It is still a very significant increase of almost 30%. Okay. So, and one thing to take note of is this quarter 3 results is almost the highest, or is the highest in almost 2 years. Okay, almost more than 2 years since 2018 quarter 2. So this is the highest transaction level we have seen in quite some time. Now, if you take a look at by house types, okay, because what we saw just now was one line. I think a landed market in general comprises of many different house types as well, and they all will have different performances. So if you take a look at this chart, you can see that between terrace, semi-Ds, all right, and detached houses, each of them, although all of them are growing, you can see that semi-Ds and detached actually grew significantly higher by almost 268%, 230%, almost double of the growth in terrace houses, even though terrace houses still account for the majority part of the transactions. Okay, so if you look at this, basically this is versus last quarter. And again, if you were to account for seasonality, if it compared with 1 year ago, all these 3 segments or house types actually also posted very positive growth between 11% and 61%. All right. What is surprising, if you see here, is that detached houses, okay, detached house, which traditionally always post the lowest transaction number because of the significant higher quantum and also the lower supply, actually post a very, very high increase. Okay, in fact, it is the highest, second highest performance here, and versus last year is actually a 61% increase. All right. So later I'll share with you some of the insights as to why this, the most esteemed or the highest quantum residential property segment in Singapore is actually doing that well. Okay, so you can see all 3 lines. They are all basically the highest level recorded in more than 2 years. Okay, the next we're going to take a look is basically, now you understand the different house types. I think a lot of our clients, residents, buyers and sellers, you will be more concerned about the respective districts that you're in, because even though Singapore is small, there is a very significant difference between the various districts, right? Between the various districts. So due to time constraint for this only the 10 major districts, all right, as you can see, 11 and 21, the Bukit Timah area, then also the east side, 13, 14, 15, 16, and the northeast region, which is 19, 20, and 28. Now, this 10 major districts covers or accounts for almost 80% of all landed transactions in Singapore, all right? So by understanding them, I also believe that it will give you a very good idea on what it's doing in these districts. And I think most of our clients are also looking at houses in this area as well. All right, so here we are, the 10 districts. So what is indicated here are the quarterly performance, and you can see, okay, versus quarter 1 and quarter 2. All right, almost every district, no, should I say all districts actually post a rise in terms of transactions versus the previous quarter, okay, versus the previous quarter. And even compared to 1 year ago, with the exception of 2, District 20 and District 28, the rest also posted very significant increase in terms of number of transactions in the last quarter. Okay, to give you a better idea, okay, this will be a bigger chart, okay, of the 10 districts that's shown. So you can see here the best performing, okay, best performing in terms of growth will be District 14 and District 21, okay, posting almost 5 times and 8 times the number of transactions. You can see here 14 used to be free and then now was 18. Okay, again, it's among the highest in the last 2 years. And District 21, a relatively quiet district, has also seen a lot of buyers moving over from the Bukit Timah side to explore this area. So, all right. So on the other side will be those that perform the weaker, so to speak, in terms of relative performance. So we will have a district 20 and 28. Okay, 20 and 28, so they're still growing, especially for 28, you can see a growth of 12%, and 20 is double, all right, 100%. But compared to last quarter, the same period, both of these districts actually is slower in terms of a number of transactions. Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds for you to take a look. By the way, my number is stated on the first slide. In case if you need any information or more detailed information on these districts or other districts that are not featured, you can always feel free to just drop me a text, okay, or give me a call. Right, now, more importantly, is value. How does transaction volume basically measures the number of transactions, but does it necessarily reflect value? Okay, value may or may not, In the next slide, I'm going to show you, explain why. In this particular district, we actually see a reverse in terms of the a transaction value, all right? So what you can see here is basically, again, last 3 years, in terms of the growth, it was showing a healthy growth, and we almost peaked at 2020 quarter 2, okay, at quarter 2, before we see a drop in the value of almost minus 4.8%. Now we're standing at almost 1,361 per square feet island-wide, okay, island-wide. While this is still among, or this is a drop, actually this is still among the highest, okay, in the history of Singapore at 1,361 per square feet. Now, there are a couple of caveats I need to highlight here. Number one, first thing is the value is measured in terms of per square feet, okay? While the data is obtained from URA SRX, this is different from another set of data that URA publishes regularly, which is the URA Residential Price Index. For them, that one actually measures the median price, okay, the median price. So sometimes when they publish this, the resulting so-called figure might be different from the trend that you see here. There's no right or wrong in terms of how you want to measure the value in terms of either PSF or median, but for most owners, they will look at this PSF as an easier indicator for them to understand, because median, you basically need to know the whole transactions and then you take the middle one. Here, in terms of PSF, a lot of owners or the stakeholders can use the PSF, the land PSF, as a reference to what they want to buy or to sell. Okay, so this is a drop of 4.8%. While it may seem a bit alarming, but let us take a look at basically what constitutes or contributed to this. All right, this is a breakdown, the same chart, but broken down into the various house types. Okay, various house types. So you can see here quite clearly that the one that is bringing the price, or the segment that's bringing the price down, is actually terrace. Okay, which reported a drop of 8.4%, dropping to this below the 1,005 mark in the previous quarter. Now it's below. Okay, then we have the semi-Ds and detached growth of 3.7 and 10.7% respectively. All right. Of course, you may ask what is contributing to these two segments. Now, one of the interesting things that we have seen on the ground is that terrace buyers are mainly upgraders from condominiums, and a lot of them are staying in resale condos. All right, if not HDB. While HDB, I think, generally has seen a very healthy growth and also posting, I think, the first ever reversal in terms of price trend. The resale condos, however, are not doing as well. All right, so that may affect the affordability of a lot of upgraders, hence also affecting the offer price I think they put in. All right, and generally this has resulted in a lot of terraces a drop in almost more than 8% in terms of the price. Whereas for semi-D and detached houses, the more affluent ones, you can understand and also have they provide the insight that I think the more affluent buyers, they are not as affected by the pandemic as let's say the salaried workers. Okay, we see a lot of the detached semi-D, especially the detached owners are business owners. When we speak to them and we see the buyers, in fact, a lot of them, especially those who are traded in stocks in the last 3 to 4 months, they actually see their wealth, okay, their wealth, or if not their business, actually improved in the last during the pandemic. So thereby increasing their budget, okay, increasing their budget. And a lot of them are actually going for better houses and are able to offer a better price. Okay, so one thing to take note here is if you look at detached, right, just to highlight, I think this is a very significant reflection on how basically the affluent are getting even more affluent. You can see detached price for the first time. I think this is quite normal. Normally, when we show this, look at all the price performance of these three different types, you will always see terrace having the highest absolute PSF, followed by semi-D, and then by detached. By virtue of the fact that detached being larger, the PSF is normally smaller or generally smaller in number. But in this quarter, you see actually detached, while being the largest asset class, also has the highest per square feet of 1,433 per square feet. All right, $1,433 per square feet. This not only is a surprising thing in terms of the expectations of based on the size, but in terms of historical results, this is also among the highest, okay, among the highest at 143, the last being at quarter one of this year. So we see a lot of detached buyers. Most of them are semi-D upgraders. Some of them are also foreigners turned Singaporeans entering this very exclusive market. Again, this is the trend by districts, okay, by districts. I'll just leave you a few seconds to take a look, and wherever you're if you're staying at 14, 15, and the rest list up, so that's easier for you to understand and can see more clearly. So these are the 10 districts once again, and those in red will be those that have declined, all right? So the best performance in terms of value, in terms of PSF, is District 13 and 16, reporting a growth of both are double digit by 10% and 22% respectively. Okay, District 13 and District 16. Now, both of this, District 13 is far becoming more and more popular because of its quite central location. For a lot of people who are priced out in 10 and 11, a lot of them would like to go to basically District 13, especially Braddell Heights area, and also because of the connectivity as well. For District 16 has always been a so-called popular cousin, I would say, of District 15 for a lot of buyers who are priced out. Now we have a lot of buyers looking for example, $3 million renovated terrace in 15. They can't find it, then they go next to the next closest ones, which is at 16, and also for semi-D buyers as well. So in 16, you can still see a lot of semi-Ds and or terraces or even detached. They are priced a lot more affordably, significantly more affordably than District 15. Okay. Now, on the other spectrum will be the districts that perform not as well, reporting double-digit decline will be District 14 and 28. With a minus 19% and minus 25% respectively. Okay, so 14, as you can see, is now at 1211. So District 14 is more on the Kembangan side, and District 28 will be more on the Seletar side. Seletar side, this one, the decline is actually affected by lack of transaction or reduction in transactions compared to the previous quarter, where a lot of new projects, they are priced at 1,009 and above was sold. Okay, so this you can say, we can easily say this is more of a quite an abnormal deflection, okay, from the usual trend. All right, so how can we summarize this very succinctly? By the way, as I said, there are a lot more charts and trends that we look into as well. So the previous 6 slides are those that we can, in a very succinct manner, understand how it goes. All right, so I just want to summarize this on the bigger picture. If you are a buyer and a seller right now, what does it mean for you in the market as reflected by the latest quarterly results? Okay, first, now transaction volume, we can see that it has surged to a 2-year highest record, okay, more than 2.6 times, right, plus 163% than the previous quarter. So of course, like a lot of property segments, not just landed, but also HDB and condos as well. This is mainly attributed to the fact because we are comparing with a weaker quarter because of the circuit breaker, the COVID, the 3-month circuit breaker. So we have to factor in that this is quite seasonal and is quite abnormal in the entire history of Singapore, where we have a complete, almost like a complete lockdown. In the real estate world, it's almost like a complete lockdown because there's no viewings at all. All right. So, but if you were to compare, so a better accurate portrayal or reflection or comparison will be to compare against 1 year ago. So the 29% increase will be a better indicator, and it still reflects a better than expected demand in this niche market. All right, considering the fact that current economic situations and conditions are generally not as positive as before. Okay, in terms of value, so there is a decline, as we've mentioned, but this is contributed mainly by the more price-sensitive terrace segment, all right, minus 8.4%. So as compared to the same period. And again, just now I mentioned about the URA landed residential price index. Actually, it posted for the same period a growth of plus 3.8%. All right, plus 3.8%. One way to reconcile this is quite simple. If you're going to put the terrace, semi-detached, and detached on one line, and you could draw the median line, the median would have shifted. All right, the median so-called price would have shifted by about 4%, reflected by also the rise in the transaction volume. So again, if you see a conflicting numbers on this side, do not be overly worried or confused. Okay. So what is interesting, like I mentioned earlier, is the resilience of the semi-D segment and the detached segment. Okay, so we can still feel and see sometimes as the reports. I think this income equality, wealth distribution inequality, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, I think it is becoming more and more obvious. All right, so this rich are still rich, if not richer trend is reflected not just in the volume, but also in the value as well. All right. So this reflects the optimism in the lender market in general. Okay, however, pardon me, the slide one thing is missing. Okay, however, the sustainability, okay, this is quite important, what's going to happen in future, right? This pent-up demand, whether it's going to be sustained for the next one quarter or even into next year, this is a thing that I think most people are questioning now, all right? Because what is going to happen once the pent-up demand dies down, the true picture of the market will be reviewed soon. And the next quarter, and of course for next year, that will actually be more indicative of the health of the entire landed property market. Okay, so has the COVID-19 pandemic negatively affected the landed market? Okay, based on this, you can generally say that the landed market has outperformed expectations. And the main reasons for this, okay, we have studied and also on the ground as well, is I think a lot of experts and economists have attributed to reasons such as a low interest rate that prompted a lot of buyers to enter the market now. There's a lot of optimism felt by those whose livelihoods are not affected. They are not retrenched. They are not affected by unemployment. All right. And there are also investors and buyers, okay, who are actually using this opportunity to preserve their wealth and to hedge against inflation as well. Right. And last but not least, this is a long-term effect, which is the resilience built by the many rounds of cooling measures in the last few years. Right. Also witnessed, I think, on the ground is this social trend of, I think, more and more upgraders now, after being cooped up in their house for 3 months, all right, in a smaller space or in their current space. A lot of them, we see a lot of upgraders, whether they are now staying in non-landed, like staying in an apartment or a HDB, or even in a smaller landed, we see a lot of them. The main reasons is they will tell me, no, really, I need one more room. You know, I need a bigger space because I just have not enough space when the whole family and, you know, my wife or my husband are all working or studying from home. So this has led to a demand for more space, and landed generally, obviously, offers a lot more usable space compared to the non-landed properties. And also what is very interesting is there's this preference of new and renovated houses. All right. What I meant is that before the pandemic, personally, for my own client portfolio, I probably have about maybe 20-30% who were, before the pandemic, before the circuit breaker, they were actually looking for older houses, right? Older houses where they can then customize, they can do their own extensive renovation or A&A, right? A&A, or even rebuild. But after the pandemic, some of this 20-30% have actually changed their direction. And I believe this is a reflection of the whole trend as well. As the main reasons is, number one is the cost, okay, increase in the cost of labor, all right, due to the pandemic. A lot of labor, these workers can't go out, and also in terms of materials as well, right, the importing of materials. But more importantly is a lot of them are facing problems. The builders, they're telling me that the builders, because of all these delays, they cannot promise them how long will their house renovation be done. It's not just a matter of just extension by from 3 months to 6 months. Some of them will tell me the builders can't even tell them when the house can be completed. Okay, and we know landed property buyers, they don't buy, generally don't buy for investment. They're buying for their own occupation, for own stay, okay, due to many non-financial or economic reasons, like for schools, they want convenience and more space, like I mentioned. So a lot of them, they prefer not to wait. Okay, they prefer not to wait to build a house or to go through a 6 to 9 months renovation. So they prefer, therefore, a lot of them are asking more for now, either renovated ones, if not new ones, if they can afford. Okay, so this has actually led to a trend, and you can see also, therefore, in the rise in the median price for these houses. All right, so the last point I mentioned, pardon me for revealing this earlier. Okay, so with this, I think, I hope I have sufficiently given a very succinct overview of the landed market after the COVID-19 pandemic. All right, again, if you have any questions, you can feel free to just give me a call, and then I can either advise you better or even send you some of the charts that I have as well. All right, over to you, Keith.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more that really you have given a very comprehensive and detailed data of the landed market, the 10 different districts, as well as the 3 different housing types. I've got 2 questions for you, Willie. The first one is, we have seen how the COVID pandemic has really transformed and altered the Q3 results for you. How do you think the first 9 months of 2020 has fared?
You're talking about the full year, right? The full year.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know whether you've seen my previous slide. I've actually prepared some extra slides just in case. So your first question just hits the nail. Because a lot of people will be saying, as I advise a lot of the clients recently as well, besides looking at just the quarter, they're asking really how does a whole year look, you know, based on the first 9 months of 2020, how does it compare to the previous years, all right, previous years, so that you have a more holistic and a bigger picture. So thankfully, I've prepared this as well, so we can take a look. Now, what you see here is basically the performance of the landed property market. Again, these are all landed, does not have strata strata landed properties, and based on PSF. All right. So for the last 20 years, you can see 20 years here, the blue line reflects the price, right? The average PSF for the first 10 decade, first 10 years, and this is what happened in the current decade from year 2010. Okay, so you can see prices have increased steadily, with the exception in 2013 when the latest or most significant round of cooling measure that has actually very, very effectively subdued, okay, the rise in price for a few years before it rose again in the last 3 to 4 years. And that's when you can see here the largely brought about by the en bloc so-called phenomenon then, all right? Is this reflected equitably by transactions? This is what makes it very interesting, all right? You can see by and large in the first 10 years when we don't have any additional buyer stamp duty, a lot of flipping or people buying or investors, you see a lot of investors entering the market. Transaction volumes are a lot significantly higher, right? Some could be as high as double, if not 3 times, like what we are seeing now. After this turn of the decade, I think the numbers, this is what we call, I think, the real reflection of the real demand, okay? So now we are seeing numbers from the high of like 4,000 plus, 3,000 plus. Now they are hovering, if you hit 2,000, like basically in 2017 and 18, during the en bloc craze, most of the, I think the actual real reflective volume is slightly more than 1,000 units, all right? Slightly more than 1,000 units. And you can see now what is firstly based on volume. We have already sold, or at least most 1,000 units of landed houses have been transacted in the first 9 months, all right? That's 70% of the time. For this number to hit or to surpass last year, I think it is highly probable, right? Highly probable to surpass last year's numbers of about 1,003 units. Whereas for price, you can see we have already surpassed last year, okay? Already surpassed last year. Even with the effect of Q4, the whole year of 2019 is still at a higher price than last year, all right, by about 2%. And this is at 1,383 per square feet, right? It's actually the highest ever transacted, right? Highest ever transacted in the history of Singapore. So I hope that gives you I think all our viewers here and a better idea, and also answer your question as well, Keith.
Thanks for that, Willie. Okay, my next question for you is, what do you think in your experience, your projection for the rest of 2020 and also for 2021?
Well, you're asking me a question that I think, well, if I were economists, I think they'll be scratching their head as well. All right, but I think a lot of factors, of course, everyone is wondering, right? I think the next year is going to be one of the most uncertain and most difficult to predict in terms of how the economy is going to go. We have the US elections coming up. We have basically, all this government subsidies and all this, they may end this year. So we have, I think on the ground, we hear so many different types and so many different diverse views on how the economy, employment are going to go, all right? As grim as a lot of reports have stated about, also on the other hand, we also see like some people believe that this might be the bottom. We might have really reached the bottom because the economy is opening up as well, all right? So there's very, very diverse because all this will have an impact, I think, on I think the confidence and of the entire residential market, not just for landed as well. But I think one thing that we can see, okay, on the long-term projection-wise, maybe a slide like this would probably show you, if you were to, pardon me, sorry, can I pause here first because my slide got something wrong. Hold on, sorry. My animations, I'm sorry. Is it okay? Let me just take this out. This is blocking my. Okay, so when I say the slide, I think you can cut there and then add it to this thing. Just give me a second.
Ready to restart, really?
Restart from the beginning or?
No, from the when you say cut the slide.
The slide, yeah. We are.
Okay. Tell me when you're ready.
Okay, give me a second.
Okay.
I
We're
should
try to wrap up this last part in 2 minutes.
Okay, can.
Tell me when you're ready.
Sorry, let me just do this first. Itchy finger, just not waiting for you all add the slides. So that no, the animation.
Okay.
One more thing. If I don't do it, let's say, okay. Oh yeah. Okay, go.
In 3, 2, 1, go.
So to answer your question, maybe we can take a look at this slide, just to show a better understanding. Just on a broad view, you can see that basically in the last 20 years, I think landed transaction volume, okay, versus the non-landed one, we are looking at about 3.1% versus 4.5%. I think one thing to take note of here is I think there's a significant increase, okay, and more stable as well for landed so-called price houses, the price of landed houses. So will end the pandemic next year or changes in the macro environment significantly affect this? If you look at this on a long-term perspective, I think by and large people can conclude that it's generally resilient, all right? Generally a lot more resilient than maybe the non-landed segment. And one main reason for this, okay, is supply, right? Is supply. Why can we more confidently say so? Because unlike condos, okay, landed supply is generally very, very is very controlled, so to speak, because you can see the Bukit Timas and the Siglap's and all this. The areas in which the landed houses are contained in, they do not increase over time. For the past 50, 60 years or so, it's always been there. The only way where supply can be increased is besides like in the absence of like GRS, like condos and stuff, is during subdivision, all right, or in a very rare development by a developer who used to own the land before. So you can see actually in the last 10 years, landed supply has only increased by about 5.5%, now to about 70 plus thousand units, whereas non-landed has increased by about 63% already, to almost 300,000 units. So if this is going to continue, whereby supply is going to remain quite a constant for landed, I think landed owners or landed buyers especially, they can be assured that the preservation of landed prices, value is going to be a lot more consistent and a lot more assured than other segments. So I hope that answers your question. Of course, in the absence of a crystal ball, this is as best as I think we can project it to be if you look at it in a long-term perspective.
Definitely, Willie. Thanks so much for sharing your valuable experience and insights. So thanks for coming to our show. That's Willie Cheong, Head of Hutton's Landed Division. Our next guest today is John Wong, Senior Sales Manager of Far East Organization. Just like Willie, John is here to share with us also on the topic of landed properties. In fact, he'll be sharing with us the introducing of cluster landed homes. John has been with the property industry for 25 years, of which 20 over years has been with Far East Organization. Welcome to the show, John, and over to you.
Hi, Keith. Yes, hi. Over the last 25 years, I actually meet quite a lot of people from all walk of life, including foreigners from all over the world. So sometimes they ask me this question in which I think it's not relevant, but it actually registered in my mind very strongly. Okay, they ask me things like, John, is there any earthquake in Singapore? I said, no lah, of course there isn't. Is there any typhoon? Is there any tsunami? Is there any social unrest? I said, no. So I just kind of like laugh off. So they say that, John, do you know that when I was young, I lost everything during the earthquake. So these are things that maybe I myself take for granted, but it registered in my mind. This is the, if you look at the map on the left-hand side, this is the Singapore map. This is where I'm born. Okay, the land area is 719 square kilometers. Population in 2018 is at 5.535 million. Currently, it's at 5.7 million. So there's a small reduction of 0.3% of the population due to the COVID-19. The density per square kilometer is 7,697. So the government, and if you look at the right-hand side, this is the UR plan. They allocate the land requirement, right? If you look at the top upper column for the housing, is 10 million square meter. From 2030, it increased to 13 million square meter, or put it at 13 square kilometers. Okay, if you look at the bottom from 10 square meter, from 10 million square meter to 2.8 square square meter, there's a reduction. Is because I think it's the government never say, but I think it's the moving of the grave. Like example, Bidadari, right? It's a graveyard, then they'll be into housing. Okay, because the land is very scarce. A lot of things can't be. You can't just build a housing. Example, a reservoir, or for defense requirement. You can't build housing, so it's very scarce. So the government, if you look at it, from 1973, 11th of September, they came out with this new rule. Okay, just shortly 8 years after the Singapore independent, a foreigner can actually buy landed. Okay, but after that, the government came out this one, residential property in which foreigner they cannot buy landed. Okay, unless the government approve, which currently is the LDAU. And further, just 8 years ago in 2012, the government came out another ruling to restrict developer for building a strata landed in the condominium and sell it to a foreigner. Okay, that means in the condominium they build houses, developer sell to foreigner. Okay, so that from 2012 3rd April onwards, the URC that is a strata landed housing in which only Singaporean can buy. Foreigner are subjected to LDAU. Okay, what is the so-called townhouses that people say? Okay, example like this, right? This is by Far East. This development is called Sea Hill. It's opposite West Coast Park. All right, 3-story, 1 basement, 4 bedroom, 3,574 square feet at 3.86 million, or 1,080 per square foot. Foreigner eligible. This should be one of the last that is built by developer where foreigner can buy. Should be one of the last, right? So as you go along, in case if there's any en bloc developer, if you don't tear out such development and build strata landed, they have to sell to Singaporean, right? So that actually deter developer from building. Okay, I'll show you this is the overall landed home transaction over the last 10 years. Okay, the record will be in 2010 at 4,346 transaction landed at 13.8 billion. Then in 2011, there's a slight drop to 10.8 billion, or 3,353 transaction. Then 2012, 11.4, right? Then 2013 is the year where the introduction of the TDS or the total debt servicing ratio tightened the loan requirement, and it actually dropped to 6 billion. Of course, the increase of the ABSD as well. So from 2014 to 2016, you see there's some restriction, resistance in buying properties because of the ABSD. But after a period of time, people may get used to it. So they say, yeah, since I want to buy, I just pay ABSD lah. I just get a lesser loan. So it's at 9.3 billion. So increased to 9.3 billion. And then 2018, again, is also 9.3 billion. And then you can see there's a 4 to 6 billion the following in 2019. Somewhere third quarter of 2018, the government against increased the ABSD and reduced the loan to value. Example, the second loan to 45%, right? So actually, it's inflicted the demand. The government inflicted the demand, and it went down 6 billion. So over this, just talking about this year itself, the first quarter, you can see the chart here, the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. Okay, interestingly, if you look at the second quarter, during the circuit breaker and the third quarter, sorry, the second quarter during the circuit breaker, there's a 212 landed transaction. You know, people cannot just go out and view property, right? So it's actually purchased online, just online they purchase, right? So the demand is there. I thought that maybe that only happened in China. People in Shanghai, they buy property in Hainan Dao, they don't want to fly. They just look through the online, they just purchase. But it happened in Singapore also. So overall, the total transaction to date, year to date this year is 4.7 billion or 1,110 units. Okay, this is an article a couple of days ago from Business Time. More landed homes sold in quarter three as buyers seek to gut wealth. Okay, what is the gut wealth? What does it mean by gutting wealth? Okay, I'll show you this chart. On the left-hand side, there's a total of, from 2016 to date, there's total of 77 en-bloc sales. En-bloc sales, they buy the old condo, they tear down, rebuild, right? So 2016 started off with just 3 at 1 billion. 2017, there's 28 en bloc at 8.7 billion. So 2018 is, wow, every month you see en bloc after en bloc. So there's 39 and then it's 10.8 billion. And then the introduction of the new, of the cooling measure, increase of ABSD, the demand dropped in 2019, but then there's still a significant 6 en bloc sale at 490 million. So currently this year, there's just one en bloc at 15.2 million. Okay, see the top en bloc sales in 2018, let's say Pacific Mansion, the land size 128,000, all right, so at 980 million, right? And then Tulip Garden, site area 316,000, so at 906 million. So these are the fat en bloc sales in 2018. If you look at the right-hand side, this is the government land sales. There's total of 43 government land sales. Out of this, the residential landed, there's only one. Residential non-landed, there's 28. Then the other like 14 is like hotel, white side and commercial is 14. So out of this total, the en bloc sales in the government land sales, there's only one site is for strata landed. So you can see the supply is very limited, and that piece of cluster home is actually in Hougang in just like 59 units. If you look at this on the left-hand side, this is Greenwood Mills off Greenwood Avenue. This is a 103 years leasehold property. The site area is 113,000, and you can just build 62 units. Starting price is 4 million or $1,268 per square foot. Then on the right-hand side here, this is Alana off Yio Chu Kang at Sunrise Terrace. The site area is 167,000 square feet. So they can build 78 units, starting at 2.44 million or 855 per square foot. Okay, you see developer, they en bloc, right? At 900 million, they will not build a cluster home. So I would say that in theory, developer will not build en bloc a development and build cluster home, right? So the supply will be very limited. So just a short introduction. This is landed at the Cashew Road, right, which is off Upper Bukit Timah. It's a 999 years, 999 years. Why is it 999 years? It's this title is issued during British colonial time. That's about 100 over years ago. The corner terrace is at 5.16 million. If I base on the land, it's 1,695. Floor area is 825. Okay, for the semi-D is this is under construction. For the semi-D is from 4.99 million. Land is 2,182 per square foot. Floor is 1,035 per square foot. Okay, you can see this comparable to condo is like almost half a price. This is under construction, so you'll be ready in about 2.5 years if you can wait, right? So it'll be brand new and it comes with 1 year warranty. And this chart show the supply for landed housing in Singapore. If you look at the left-hand side, the chart in 2011, for HDB, majority people say HDB, 83% stay in HDB, 11% stay in condo, apartment, and EC, 6% stay in landed. Okay, if you look at the chart, this is a chart 2019, last year, the HDB reduced to 79%, right? And then the condo apartment HDB increased to 16%. Okay, the landed actually reduced to 5%. Okay, looking at the chart itself, that means more condominium apartment is being built. Right, it maybe outpace the HDB. And of course, the limited supply of landed. That's why the reduction, the pie chart actually changed, right? And maybe it's because the income have actually increased overall, the household income increased, and people are actually going to buy more of condo apartments. Yeah. This is the property price index over the last 10 years. Okay, on the top right, top orange color, that's property price index for landed property versus the blue color, which is the condo and apartment, right? So overall, over the last 10 years, landed property increased by 33% compared to non-landed. Okay, one of the reasons is because of supply. When demand supersedes supply, I mean, the prices actually go up in a way. So land is very limited in terms of supply. And the other thing is, of course, the income, right? You look at income, this chart, this is from SingStat up to 2018. Right, the landed property, people in staying landed, either they actually, over the year, they make more money, or they buy a land, they have make more money, and then they purchase a landed. So the top bracket income earner is staying landed at 27,134. This is a medium compared to condo, which is 20,000. So the income has risen for those people and staying in landed. Okay, maybe I'll show you a short video for this, Alana.